Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I am here today to do a Friday Reads video where I wrap up the week in reading and talk about bookish or exciting things. Exciting thing, let's talk about that first. This morning when I woke up, I saw that I had crossed 15,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Thank you everyone who is watching, because obviously that wouldn't happen without you. It's wild. I don't really know what to think about it. It seems weird and bizarre as someone who lives and, thrives on imposter syndrome. I almost feel like I shouldn't even acknowledge it, but it would feel weird not to acknowledge it. Now, Joel and I did already film a celebration video for it. We filmed it a little early because I had seen that it was approaching that number, and because Joel and I are going to be on vacation for a portion of May, we have been filming ahead to try to make sure that there is content for you all while we are gone for two weeks. So one of those videos is a sort of celebration about that, and although we hadn't crossed 15,000 subscribers at the time, it has happened as of today, the day I'm filming this, which is Friday, May 3rd. So I just really wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you, and there will be a celebration coming at some point. I think what's particularly shocking to me about this is that when we did a celebration video last summer, I think it was June or July, I had just crossed 10,000 subscribers. And in 1 year, less than a year actually, I'm at 15,000, which is really bizarre. And I wanted to put a lot of the credit for that on a single video that I released in the month of July, which is the What is the Best Book of the Last 25 Years video that I did. I will have a link to that in the description box down below if you would like to check that video out. It's almost a year old at this point. But the reality is, let me see, it's definitely not just that video, because I could pull up how many subscribers I got off of that one video. It's a lot. It's 1,200. So it's a big percentage of the new subscribers, but it's not all that one video, which is, by the way, far and away the most popular video I have ever made for my channel. And I think it definitely helped, but it just starts to feel like as your channel grows, it starts to happen faster, which feels bizarre and weird. Like I said, I really have struggled keeping up with comments a lot of the time, and I'm going to try to do better about that, but I think I also need to, at some point, accept that there might be too many comments for me to really feasibly keep up with. But I'm going to keep trying and making an effort to do that, because, as I said last year, I want to try to keep that small channel feel, no matter how big my channel does get. And anyway, I just really wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you, and say that there will be a celebration video coming during the month of May while I'm gone. I have managed to film a couple of videos that we'll post while we're gone, and it's been a process because I don't want to just dump some content while we're gone. I want it to be stuff that will be enjoyable and engaging for you. So that has been a concern. I don't want to just film anything ahead. I want it to be stuff that you will care about. And I think we have some fun stuff lined up for you, so that'll be fun. Hi, Editing Greg is jumping in because I realized I completely forgot to mention something that I had wanted to address in this, which is the topic of a Q&A. Because usually when you reach some sort of a milestone with subscribers or views or something like that, you do a Q&A. It's what people like. It's what people sort of expect. And when I did the 10,000 subscribers celebration last year, which also, by the way, had 1 million views. And on that topic, before I get completely distracted, I should mention that in addition to 15,000 subscribers, I've already gotten 1,500,000 views on the channel, which again is like, I don't know what to say about that because it's insane. It feels particularly wild because it took 5 years to get 10,000 subscribers, and I've gotten 5,000 in less than a year since then. And it took 5 years to get 1 million views, and I've done half of that in less than a year. So it's just nuts. Anyway, I did do a Q&A at some point in the past. I can't remember at what subscriber level I did it. I got so many questions that it became a bit of an arduous process working through all of the questions and posting multiple videos, and people sort of lost interest as they went on. So I kind of had this knee-jerk reaction, like, I don't want to do another Q&A. At some point I will, because I know people enjoy them, and this not isn't just about what I like to do. It's a give and a take. So because people enjoy Q&As, I also just didn't want to do one that close to the last one. So maybe the next milestone I will do a Q&A. That's sort of what I wanted to say in this that I didn't. What I am just thinking is, especially since I'm going to be gone, it would be fun to have a celebration video, post it, and have that there for everyone. And then maybe on the next one, I'll do a Q&A. No promises, but maybe that's what I'll do, because I know people like those things, and it's been long enough that I feel like it could be a thing that I do. I just need to think about how I do it so it's not such a long, overbearing process. But anyway, back to the rest of the video. There should be a Friday Reads video next week, if all goes well, because I'm going to have to film it ahead. Friday, May 10th will be the day that we leave. So I'm going to have to probably film it a little early, but I think that'll be perfect because I didn't actually finish anything this week. Spoiler for the Friday Reads portion of the video, but I have made good progress on books. So if I film it early, I'll be able to talk about the 2 books that I will have undoubtedly finished. The other big thing is, of course, that the Pulitzer Prize announcement will be made on Monday. It doesn't look like the events at Columbia University are going to impact that announcement. I had been a little concerned about that. It will be interesting to see if there are any repercussions based on responses to the Pulitzer Prizes, because the Pulitzer Prize is administered by Columbia University. So that remains to be seen, but it doesn't seem as though the awards themselves will be held back or, delayed or anything like that. It should be going off on schedule on Monday. Hopefully, I will be able to film a reaction live, which is what I was able to do last year. That, I admit, was a bit of a fluke because it just so happened that my boss had an appointment on the day that the Pulitzer Prizes were announced last year. So I was able to carve out some time to actually watch the ceremony as it happened live. I'm indicating toward my laptop, which you can't see, but I watched it on my laptop and recorded as it happened, and it had a wild result. I'll link my reaction down below. You've seen it. I was stunned when there was a tie. I don't think anything like that is going to happen again, and I admit I don't feel as passionate about the book that I want to win as I did last year. I was really hoping that Demon Copperhead would win last year. And I feel like I'm sort of split between 2 books this year. I'll be really happy if The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store wins. I'll be really happy if Tom Lake wins. I'll be kind of muted if Northwoods wins. I think it's a good book. I didn't particularly respond to it, but I feel like I'm more okay with multiple different scenarios this year, and whereas last year I was really in the bag for Demon Copperhead. But anyway, hopefully I'll be able to film my reaction as it's actually happening on my laptop, which I'm pointing to, but we'll see. There's a chance I won't be able to watch live and I'll have to film after the fact. My job is pretty unpredictable. I don't really know what the day is going to look like. Even a lot of the time in the morning, I don't really know what the afternoon is going to look like because the nature of what we do is just very up in the air. Point being, the announcement should be on Monday unless something really bad happens over the weekend. And hopefully I will be able to film a reaction to it and then just edit it and upload. So you'll be getting it on Monday. Might be a little difficult. I might not be able to actually film a reaction as it happens, but hopefully you will get something. And I'm really excited. There's so many different ways it could go every year, but it feels like that this year in particular. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And if you have any last minute predictions for what you think will win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, you've already seen my predictions video, but I will put it down below. If you have not, let me know in the comment section down below. I think that would be interesting. I am sorry Teddy's not here because I did try to get him and he just was not into it. We've had a spell of really cold weather again, And today it's supposed to be up to 57 degrees. It's actually sunny outside. So he is, again, really excited and kind of running around. So I did have him at first, but when I sat down with him, he was like, I don't want to sit here. So he ran off and he is having fun. I'm sorry. I will try to make sure you see him before we go. Somebody had asked, we have a great person who watches the dogs. We found them when we still had Guinness, and they took good care of him. And then after he was gone, they took really good care of Jamie, even when Jamie was sick. Jamie was, I don't want to say a difficult dog. She had emotional baggage. She was a rescue, and she wasn't a bad dog, but people sometimes didn't know what to do with her because you couldn't just put her out with other dogs. She could sometimes be a little territorial with other dogs, so she didn't quite get along with a lot of other dogs. And she could bark. She didn't really like strangers, and these people really worked with her and got to know her and earned her trust, and it was lovely, and they took such good care of her. And I've been thinking about Jamie a lot this week, and I think that's part of why my reading has been a bit slow this week, because May is her birthday month, and I've just been thinking about her a lot. So I figured today I would wear my WSU Vet Med t-shirt for my Friday Reads video in honor of her, because we went to the vet med school with her last year to treat a nasal tumor, and then ultimately we ended up losing her, not because of the nasal tumor. There was by the end of the year, a different tumor had become a problem, let's say. But I've been thinking about her lately, so just figured I would wear this in honor of her, since we will be gone on vacation when her actual birthday comes up. I've just been thinking about it. So anyway, Teddy wanted to run and have fun, so that is what he is doing. The only other thing I think that I wanted to mention before we get to the actual Friday Reads portion of the video is that Joel and I have been watching Secrets of the Octopus on Hulu, and it is truly amazing. The footage that they got of these octopuses is absolutely stunning. And I think there are only 3 episodes. They're all available right now on Hulu, and we've watched 2 of them. And Cy Montgomery hasn't come into it. I don't know if I had to just assumed that she had a role in the show. Maybe it was a behind the scenes role, but anyway, she helped put together this book that is a companion to it. It is done in collaboration with National Geographic. I don't know if you can see this. The light seems a little bright today, and this is a white book, so it feels very reflective. But anyway, the photographs in this book are also really stunning. Let's just do a bit of a sample, and it has been so enjoyable to watch, and we've learned so many really interesting things. I would totally recommend that. It's narrated by Paul Rudd, and I did not know that. We had started watching it, and I didn't even think, sometimes you'll hear a voice and you think, I know who that person is, I just can't place them. Didn't even think it, and then it said narrated by Paul Rudd at the end. It was like, oh, huh. And once you hear it, but I would never have placed him. Anyway, I wanted to mention that because now I really want to sit down with this book. It is less than 200 pages, and a lot of it is text sort of like this, where it's just about different octopuses. So it should be really easy to read. I might sit down with it before we leave and see if I can read it maybe this weekend. Maybe Saturday's going to be tough because we're getting haircuts kind of on the early side. So I am losing that opportunity to sit on a Saturday morning with a cup of coffee and a book. But I might try to just pick this up and see if I make any headway with it before we go. And look at this little photo. I've been really enjoying that show. I forgot to grab The Soul of an Octopus, which is Cy Montgomery's other book about octopuses. And if you haven't read a Cy Montgomery book, do yourself a favor and do it. There's no audio for this one, really, because it's a companion. It's not a straight narrative. It's just kind of information about different types of octopuses and people sharing stories. The foreword is someone talking about how the first time he met an octopus. I'm really looking forward to picking this up and getting through it. Cy Montgomery is great. Of Time and Turtles, wonderful. The Soul of an Octopus, wonderful. How to Be a Good Creature, wonderful. The Hummingbird's Gift, wonderful. And if you can, I recommend the audios, but the way her books are put together, it's so beautiful. So I recommend the physical books or the audio or both if you can swing that, because they're just so good. And her voice is lovely. But I've been really enjoying this, and I kind of hope she pops up in episode 3. I don't think she will. But we have been watching and really enjoying that. So I wanted to mention this book that I had brought into my library in March, I believe. And now the show is available, and it's wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I also did want to say that in my last book haul video, which I'll have linked down below, I made a kind of throwaway comment because I only had 4 books to talk about in that book haul, and someone had recently complained that they like my channel, but my videos are usually around the 30-minute mark, and they'd prefer videos a little bit shorter. I made a throwaway comment that this might be a video for them, and people were defending the length of my videos in the comment, which I really appreciate, but I just sort of want to clarify, I didn't mean to disparage that person. They have a right to like short videos, and that's fine. And that is why I do things like I'll put timestamps in my Friday Reads video. If you don't like the chatty part that I'm doing right now, you can skip to the Friday Reads portion of the video. That's kind of the way I approach this. If you don't want to watch one of my videos, that's fine. You don't have to watch every video that I make. If you only want to watch part of my videos, that's also fine. Like in my Friday Reads, I'll be talking about the 2 books that I've been working on. If you aren't interested in one of them, skip to the next one. That's fine. So I do appreciate that so many people like the longer videos and the chatty videos, but I just want to say I did, especially to that person, if they're still watching, I really didn't mean it as an alarm went off and I got distracted. I didn't mean to disparage that person. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, but I do appreciate that so many people like the longer videos and the chattier parts, because I like being chatty. I'm a talkative person by nature. So it's the way my channel is going to be. And if that works for you, great. If it doesn't, this is the way I want to have my channel. So it is what it is. And there it is. Let's get into the actual Friday Reads portion of this video. I mentioned that I have not actually finished anything, but I have 2 books on the go. Let's talk about them. And I'm trying to decide if I want to talk about the audio or the book first. Let's go with the physical book first. So if you know me, you know I am a huge fan of Night of the Living Res by Morgan Talty. So if you are someone who struggles with story collections, this is one that I would absolutely recommend. Also, my beloved The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Philyaw. Wonderful, wonderful book. My story with this one is that I listened to this on audio after Morgan Talty did an interview, I want to say with NPR, and I heard it on their Book of the Day podcast, which I listened to. By the way, I recommend that podcast. It's fun. I don't listen to every episode. I sort of see what it's about and decide if I want to listen to it. So I'm pretty sure that's where I heard an interview with Morgan Talty, and his book was on Scribd. So I listened to the audio, and I ended up loving it so much that the same day I finished it, I called Montana Book Company to see if they had a copy. They did. They put it in the mail for me and sent it to me, and I have just loved it ever since. So one of my most anticipated books of 2024 has been Morgan Talty's debut novel and follow-up to Night of the Living Res. It's always a little confusing when someone has published a book when they call it a debut novel. And it is a debut novel because it's their first novel, but it's not really their debut because this exists. I don't know. I always find that a little bit weird, but it is true that this is a debut novel. This will be coming out on June 4th, and this is what I have been reading. I am halfway through at this point, and I think the only reason I haven't finished it at this point, or at least made a good run toward the end, is that, well, one, again, feelings about Jamie this week, and work was unexpectedly busy this week because my boss suddenly remembered that I'm going to be on vacation for most of May, and we had a lot of things that we needed to cover this week. So work ended up being busy. I was all in my feelings about Jamie. And that's kind of how the week started. So I got off to a slow start with this book, sort of unintentionally. And I am at a point where I feel like I'm so invested in the story that I really need to sit down and have the time to make a big run. Maybe not all the way through, since it's a little over 200 pages. And I am on page 85 right now. So I said I'm halfway through. I'm a little less than halfway through. I'm not very good at math, but I feel like I'm going to need to pay more attention. The chapters are sort of short, so I had been reading like a chapter or 2 or 3 before bed, and I feel like I need a bigger run, and that had been my plan for last night. So I'm filming this on Friday. Thursday night, my plan was we were supposed to go to bed a little early. That ended up not happening. And then when we did, I was unexpectedly exhausted. So I had to pretty much just like pass out and go to sleep. And that is exactly what happened. So my plan had been to sit down and make a big run through a chunk of this book. And that didn't end up happening. But hopefully this weekend I will be able to finish, because I think once I have that time put aside and I sit down with this, I think I'm going to fly through it. I admit I struggled a little bit with the first 2 or 3 chapters, and I genuinely don't know if that's anything that I was getting from the book or if there's just this weird feeling, because, sometimes when you love something so much and then the author puts out another book, there's a sense of terror about whether or not it will live up to your expectations or the feelings that you got from the first one. So I admit, part of me has been terrified to read Fire Exit because I have such expectations based on how much I loved Night of the Living Rez, and that's never fair. So I admit it took me about 2 or 3 chapters to really get into this book, but then once I did, I was in. And like Night of the Living Rez, this is really a book that is about family, and it's not as much about like generational trauma or things like that, which you get from Night of the Living Rez, but it is very much about family secrets and layers of family history, and it's about relationships, blood relationships, and other things. So the protagonist has a daughter that he lives across the river from, and he is in this really interesting place with the tribe where he lives. So this, like Night of the Living Rez, this is set within the Penobscot Reservation in Maine, and our protagonist, Charles is his name, he is a white man, but his mother married a man who was on the reservation. So he actually grew up on the reservation, but because ultimately when his stepfather died, he could not really be considered part of the tribe because his stepfather had been part of the tribe. It wasn't enough. His mother could stay on the reservation because she had married in, but he couldn't. So the stepfather, who was alive at the time, built him a house across the river from the reservation. So he lives across and just happens to live across the river from his daughter. And it is not known that this is his daughter. He knows, the mother knows, but nobody else does. The mother had this happens in the first chapter, so it's not a secret. She had asked him to keep it a secret because, again, you sort of come back to that idea of like blood quantum, which is mentioned in the introduction, which is a letter to the reader, the idea of blood quantum and what percentage of the tribe you have. So the woman asked him to keep it a secret because if it was known that she had a white father, she wouldn't meet the percentage that was required to stay on the reservation. So he agreed to keep it a secret, but the secret is like burning a hole in him, and he decides early on that he wants to tell her. But there are a lot of other things going on. He has struggled with alcohol and depression. He has a very complicated relationship with his mother. And it's interesting because, sometimes we talked about this a little bit with Here We Go Again by Alison Cochrane and All the Right Notes by Dominic Lim. Both of them did something that I usually find irritating in a book, and it only annoyed me in one of them, which is that there's a secret, and the book tells you that there's a secret early on, and then you are supposed to sort of wait, because this does that a little bit. It tells you early on that our protagonist has a sense of guilt about the death of his stepfather, but you don't know what that is. But it doesn't feel like it's teasing you at all. So I'm okay with it in this case, but it does do something that can annoy me in other books. But as soon as this got into the really complicated family dynamics and complicated relationships and the complicated family history, I was really immediately captivated. And I can't wait to finish this book. I am loving it. so far. And I mean, I'm only less than halfway through at this point, remembering math. So, I mean, like I said, I'm a little less than halfway through. So, of course, there's room for this to go off the rails. Plenty of room. There's more than 100 pages. They're like 150 pages. So it could happen. But right now, I am feeling just as captivated by this book as I did by Night of the Living Res. And I would say Night of the Living Res, I forget this now that I've had enough time from it. I had a bit of a slow start with it, but once the pieces started to come together, I was absolutely captivated. So I have had people comment and say that they had a slow start with Night of the Living Res as well, and my advice is always stick with it. And this started to capture me a lot more quickly. Like I said, I think I had a bit of a slow start with 2 or 3 chapters, and then I was hooked, and am really looking forward to finishing this. It's sort of burning a hole in my brain right now, because as I have been working yesterday and again today, I have really wanted to pick this up, but I can't because I'm working and it's just annoying. And that really, to me, is the sign of a book that you're really into, and Fire Exit has that. So this is going to be released on June 4th. Tin House sent me an advanced reader's copy of it, and I am so grateful that they did, because it gives me a chance to read this book now and not have to wait. But if you would like to pre-order a copy, I will have a link to do that on bookshop.org down below. If you use that link, it gives me a little kickback. Otherwise, you can feel free to request it at your local library, or make sure that they will be getting a copy. Hopefully they will, because at this point, Morgan Talty is a known author, thanks to Night of the Living Res. But just double check and make sure, or you can pre-order through your own local independent bookstore. I think this is definitely one to watch. And in my Pulitzer discussion group on Discord, we have been talking about 2 books already for 2025 Pulitzer contenders. And right now, far and away, the favorite for next year is James by Percival Everett, which is the book that I'm listening to on audio. But there has been some discussion of Fire Exit by Morgan Talty as well. I think it's going to be hard because James is sort of taking up all the oxygen, and Percival Everett has been a finalist before. We don't need to get into next year's Pulitzer discussion too much, but let's use that as a pivot to talk about James. So I am halfway through James. I managed to listen to a little bit of this one this morning, and that got me to about the halfway point. You're familiar with this one. This has been the toast of Literary Town this year, and a lot of people are reading it, or they're reading Huckleberry Finn in order to read James, because this is sort of a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of Jim, who travels with Huckleberry Finn along the river on a raft. And you know that. What I will say, and I was talking to Joel about this last night, and he seemed a little reluctant to talk about it because he doesn't really want to give anything away. But I will say, it feels like James does require at least familiarity with Huckleberry Finn for a lot of it to land, whereas I think Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver stands on its own. You can read Demon Copperhead and not know anything about David Copperfield, and there's a good chance you will still enjoy it. There's a chance you might fall into some of the complaints that other people had about Demon Copperhead, which is that they would say it feels a little episodic, but David Copperfield was an episodic novel. It was published in installments. So you could fall into something like that with Demon Copperhead, but by and large, if you are completely unaware that it is an updated version of David Copperfield, you might still enjoy it. I do think this kind of depends on the reader having at least a passing familiarity with Huckleberry Finn, or at least a passing familiarity with some of the complaints and controversies about the use of the N-word in that book and the portrayal of Jim in that book. And I'm not going to get into a lot of those things because I didn't read Huckleberry Finn, and I don't feel really qualified to step in and talk about proper use of the N-word, improper use of the N-word, and what Mark Twain intended as an author in there. But I do think this book kind of needs you to know about those discussions. But I'm also not done. And I do think if you are completely unaware of all of those things, you could still enjoy James. It just has so much more added to it if you are aware of those things. Because the thing that is the most interesting about James is the way Percival Everett talks about code switching. And I mentioned this in our wrap up for the month of April, which I'll have linked down below as well. Jim comes across as very ignorant, very stereotypical in Huckleberry Finn. And again, I didn't read it, but I read just enough to see examples of it before I put it down and DNF'd it. But Joel read it, and he definitely experienced that. So in this book, James is actually a very intelligent man, and he has to dumb himself down around white people as a strategy to get by in life. And it's really fascinating. And there are a lot of ways where Percival Everett plays with that sense of expectation, and the ability to tell your own story came up at one point in a very resonant way. Partially with the ability to read and write, but also just like he gets a little frustrated, James, that is, with a slave narrative that he's reading because he knows that it has been filtered through white publishers and white people who have filtered the story and turned it into something else. He can tell the ways in which it's not genuine. And so having the right to tell your own story, it's a really interesting, fascinating book. I think Percival Everett earns all of the kudos that he has been getting. He definitely earns a lot of the discussion about how this is the heavy frontrunner for the Pulitzer next year. And there's still a lot of time in 2024 for another contender to emerge. And who knows, whoever is on the jury for this year might want to recognize a smaller author and give them a chance, because really what ended up happening, I feel like it would have happened for Percival Everett anyway. He had been writing a long time before he got recognized, but he became a Pulitzer Prize finalist. And then once that happened, his next book, The Trees, was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. And I kind of feel like that would have happened anyway, but you do also wonder, if he hadn't been a Pulitzer Prize finalist, would he have been on the radar of the Booker jury as much? Or did the fact that he had been a Pulitzer Prize finalist give sort of leverage for people to market The Trees? I don't know. But it definitely feels like he has so much more visibility right now. So if the jury wants to do something like that for another Percival Everett who has been relatively undiscovered at this point, maybe he'll end up missing. Again, I don't want to get bogged down in Pulitzer discussion for next year, but here we are. It's something that's always on my mind. And I think this is a really fascinating contender. I'm so glad I'm finally reading a Percival Everett book, because I have been failing to read The Trees for a really long time. And I'm actually listening to this on audio, but I did get a copy of the book. You might be noticing the sticker. That is not a book club sticker. It's a signed edition from Parnassus Books sticker. So I knew I wanted a signed copy, and I knew that they were going to be having an event. So rather than pre-order, I waited until after the event, called them to see if they had any left. So here is my signed edition of James with this adorable bookmark. I know I showed this off, but I never will get tired of the bookmark that came with it from Parnassus, which has Ann Patchett's dog on it. That is Sparky Van Davender. And this has become one of my most prized bookmarks because of that. The audio has been really good as well. So I am going to be done with both of these by early next week, because I am, like I said, halfway through James. Should be easy to finish. Although lately my audio listening has tailed off over the weekend, but should be pretty easy to finish before I go. And once I have time to sit down, I think I'm going to fly through the rest of Fire Exit by Morgan Talty. It's just a matter of really finding that time to sit down and dedicate attention to it. And I think part of what's happening to me is that because the chapters are so short, it feels a little too easy to do little bites of the book, like a nibble here, a nibble there, a nibble an hour later. And that's not what I want to do anymore. I really just want to sit down and dedicate the time to this book because I'm really enjoying it. So that is what I've been reading. I haven't really decided what my next audio will be once I finish James, because whatever it is, it's going to have to be short so I can make sure that I finish it. I mean, I don't have to finish it before we leave because there will be a big plane ride, but Joel and I are intending to listen to an audio together because we're actually leaving from Seattle. So we're going to be driving from Missoula to Seattle. It's a 9-hour trip. We found a 9-hour audiobook that will be perfect. So I want to finish something before that. And then if I'm going to do something on the plane, I almost want it to be something new. I'm not going to be taking any books with me. So I haven't decided what my audio situation will be. I'm going to wait and see when I finish James. Maybe I won't even start anything just to make sure I have a clear docket for when we actually travel. It's coming up. I can't believe it's coming. It's wild. I am hoping that if I finish Fire Exit quickly, that I will pick up Blackouts by Justin Torres. I didn't bother grabbing the dust jacket again because the book itself is really pretty. But I would like to at least have started this book before the Pulitzer Prize is announced on Monday because, selfishly, I want to at least be reading it if it does end up winning. But I don't think it will because it won the National Book Award, and the National Book Award and the Pulitzer don't really line up all that much, at least not as much as you might think they do or would. Anyway, part of me selfishly wants to be able to say that I read the Pulitzer book. So if it's biography of X, I could still say I attempted it. So it wouldn't be something that I catch up to specifically because it won the Pulitzer Prize. It would be something that I attempted on my own. And I want to be able to say the same about Blackouts. That's entirely arbitrary. So if I don't manage to start this before Monday, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But it's just those things that you do, the knots that you pull yourself into for no reason, really. So anyway, that is what I have been up to this week, what I've been reading, what I've been watching. I'd love to hear what you've been up to, what you've been reading, what you've been watching, and all of that. Again, I am just gobsmacked by 15,000 subscribers. It is well beyond anything I would have expected for my channel when I started 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago at this point. And all I can say is thank you, because I had been missing conversations about books in my life, and I just wanted to get those started. So people responded to that and started having conversations with me, and I have loved that. And I do apologize that I have not been successful at keeping up with comments. I think that might be the new normal at this point, because the volume of comments that come in and having a full-time job on top of this is a lot. So I'm going to keep trying. If I don't respond to you, all I can say is I'm sorry, and please don't lose faith, because I really do want to keep all of those conversations going. But I just appreciate everything and the kindness and the support from everyone over the years. It has been wonderful, and I don't have any plans to go anywhere. So hopefully we'll be having conversations well into the future. I appreciate it. And as always, I really appreciate your time watching this video, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.